of forgotten history and folklore. That earned him a bit of a cult following among NPR listeners who flat out loved the way he could spin a tale.
Joe Bowman was so good with a single-action revolver, he could turn an aspirin into powder at 20 yards.
Spanning 3 decades with NPR, Wade Goodwin gave voice to much joy and also much trauma. As he reflected 25 years later on the toll of the Oklahoma City bombing, Wade gave listeners a glimpse of what it was like to consider all that he'd seen.
When I tried to record the narrative for the story, describing the bagpiper playing Amazing Grace, my throat closed up at that part and I couldn't go on. I told the recording engineers to give me 5, and then tried again. To my frustration, I choked up a second time. Eventually, I got through it, but someone must have called my editor, and a few minutes later the phone rang. "It's time to go home," he told me. "You've done a good job, Goodwin. Go home to Texas." And so I did. Wade Goodwin, NPR News.
Good job indeed, Goodwin. Find rest at home. Debbie Elliott, NPR News.
This is NPR News.
Marketplace Morning Report is coming up next, and then in 10 minutes at 9 o'clock, it's the BBC NewsHour on WNYC. Let's check in with London to see what they're working on. London, good morning.
Good morning, WNYC. I'm Tim Franks. On today's NewsHour, the Trump indictments will look at the politics and the law and a radical overhaul of EU migration rules. That's BBC NewsHour, coming up at 9 on WNYC.
62 with some sunshine out there. It appears that the air quality is actually improving today, so that's a good thing. We have a slight chance of showers and thunderstorms as well. We'll need to watch out for small hail and gusty winds. Mostly cloudy on this Friday and a high of 72. Tomorrow, slim chance of afternoon showers, mostly sunny in 78 and sunshine in 83 on Sunday.
WNYC supporters include Signature Theater presenting the world premiere of The Comeuppance by Brandon Jacobs Jenkins, directed by Eric Ting, a dark comedy about friends reuniting on the eve of their high school anniversary. More at signaturetheater.org.
Recently on Wait, Maeve Higgins was disappointed to find out that Jeff Bezos got engaged to someone else.
I'm just like, I thought he was into me. He's always sending me little gifts in the post. Things I need for my house.
Offers.
I'm Peter Sagal, and this week's Wait, we'll be talking to everybody but thinking only of you. Join us for the news quiz from NPR. Tomorrow morning at 11 on 93.9 FM and AM 820 WNYC.
A dark turn in American politics is, of course, a fundraising opportunity.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Amazon Business, helping provide a smarter, easier way to get the supplies businesses need to thrive. Amazon Business, your partner for smart business buying. And by Grammarly, offering Grammarly Business to help companies large and small communicate better and move faster with enterprise-grade generative artificial intelligence. Learn more at grammarly.com/business.
From Marketplace, I'm Sabri Benishore, in for David Brancaccio. Donald Trump has become the first former U.S. president to face federal charges. The charges are related to the Justice Department's probe into Trump's alleged mishandling of classified documents. And with that news not even 12 hours old, both Republicans and Democrats are using the indictment as a way to raise money, as Marketplace's Nancy Marshall-Genzer reports.
The Trump campaign is firing off fundraising emails with blazing headlines like breaking, Trump facing imminent federal indictment, stop whatever you're doing, sign a petition, and make a donation. Democrats sent out an email after the indictment pointing out that Trump was still the GOP frontrunner for president and asking for $7 to send Republicans a message and, quote, stop their right-wing agenda. Former President Trump has already raised millions from other accusations he faces, including charges earlier this year from a Manhattan grand jury related to alleged hush money in the 2016 election. Trump rallies his supporters and donors by claiming the charges are politically motivated. I'm Nancy Marshall-Genzer for Marketplace.
Back in the winter of 2021, Texas's electrical grid failed spectacularly as people heated their homes. Improvements have been made, and this summer, demand for electricity is expected to break records as people cool their homes. For the first time, the state will rely on renewable energy to help meet that peak demand. From Houston, Marketplace's Elizabeth Trovel reports.
Texas has grown a lot in the last 25 years, and Rice University's Ken Medlock says with all those people and businesses moving into the state,
that's driving more need for more power.
At the same time,
you've had tremendous growth in wind and now solar.
This summer, those renewable energy sources will be put to the test. Fossil fuel and nuclear power plants will no longer produce enough electricity to meet peak demand.
Solar is actually going to have just a massive impact.
Austin-based energy consultant Doug Lewin says solar has grown about tenfold in just a couple of years. So when Texas's ACs are blowing,
we're just not going to need to white knuckle it through 4 or 5 in the evening when we're at peak demand.
He says the state has also bulked up its use of batteries to store solar energy and use it later, after the sun sets. In Houston, I'm Elizabeth Troval for Marketplace.
Stocks rallied yesterday, and the S&P 500 closed at its highest level so far this year, up 20% from a low in October, which means we are officially in a bull market. And so with that, let's do the numbers. The FTSE in London is down 0.5%. S&P futures are about flat. NASDAQ futures are up 0.3%, and Dow futures are down 0.2%. That's 75 points.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by UiPath. More than 10,000 organizations use the UiPath AI-powered business automation platform to automate business processes. It's a smarter way to innovate. More at uipath.com/marketplace. UiPath, the foundation of innovation. And by the podcast Truth Be Told with Tanya Mosley returns for a new season exploring research that shows psychedelics as a promising treatment for all forms of PTSD.
There's a theory out there in economics that the U.S. doesn't have a labor market. It has two. It would explain how we have such low unemployment and new jobs being added for 29 consecutive months, but some workers still struggle to escape poor-paying or precarious jobs. Marketplace's senior economics contributor Chris Farrell joins us to talk about it. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning.
So a dual labor market. Explain that.
There's a primary labor market, and it has relatively high wages, good working conditions, opportunities for advancement. A secondary labor market includes people who work at low wages, bad working conditions, unstable employment. And key to the idea of a dual labor market is that each sector differs greatly in its degree of employment stability and that there is limited mobility between the two sectors. So several decades ago, there's a group of economists argued that the U.S. had a dual labor market, but the framing fell out of favor for a variety of reasons. Just to give you one, the American labor market has historically been considered more flexible and fluid. And even though this is deeply wrong, the attitude was, well, workers in low-wage jobs, these are low productivity workers, they're unable or unwilling to get the skills needed for higher-paying jobs.
We've seen in recent decades this increase in contingent workers, temp workers basically, plus gig workers. How do they fit into this dual labor market view of the economy?
It's time to revisit this thesis for the U.S., which 3 economists recently did, and their analysis finds 3 distinct segments. They document a primary workforce, which comprises about 55% of the population. And these workers, they have high levels of employment stability, and when they're unemployed, it's for a very short period of time.
And the other 2 layers, I guess, don't have that luxury?
No, so the secondary labor market makes about 14% of the population, but workers in this segment, their work lives are a constant state of flux. The secondary market accounts for 61% of unemployment in the economy. And they did mention a third sector. You can kind of wonder why they call it a dual market when they document 3 segments. Okay, but the third segment, 32% of the population, but people in this segment work very, very infrequently. So good example might be retirees.
So let's assume that this is accurate. What do we do with that information?
So I want to highlight what I think is the most important implication when you go through the dual labor market literature. And it tends to emphasize the difference between good jobs and bad jobs rather than the current focus on the skills gap, the unskilled and the skilled worker, specifically what kinds of policies would get industries and businesses to transform these bad jobs into good jobs, or at least narrow the gap.
Marketplace's senior economics contributor, Chris Farrell. Super interesting. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Our executive producer is Kelly Silvera. Our digital producer is Jarrett Dang. Our engineers are Nick Esposito, Jake Cherry, and Brian Allison. And in New York, I'm Sabri Benishore with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.